What eventually happens when you ask for input? You know someone, whether intentionally or accidentally, will respond with something you weren't expecting. In today's lesson, we'll handle invalid inputs for the Choose an Adventure program. But first, we'll organize our program code better by creating methods. A method is a named block of code designed to perform a specific task and can be called from anywhere in the program. Hi, I'm Annette Gotland. I'm the author of the Do-It-Yourself Java Games books. I teach Java programming through creating games. Welcome to the video version of my books. We're currently in the Text Games video series, TG, the first of 4 types of games series. The focus of this series is to cover the fundamentals of Java programming. No previous programming experience is required. You'll learn how, when, and why Java programs are written the way they are. This series has 16 projects. We're currently working on the 6th project, TG6, Choose an Adventure. In this project, we'll create a program for an adventure story where the reader chooses what should happen next, as shown here. This is lesson TG6.3, where you'll learn about methods and the switch default. At the end of lesson 6.2, we had each case of the switch statement print a line of code. In this lesson, we'll create methods so each case of the switch statement can call a block of code. Exercise 1. Create a method. Pause the video if you need more time in any of these exercises. If you want to see how I would complete any of the listings, please refer to the completed listings at the end of the video. Type the code exactly as shown to create a method named Go Up the Hill. There's no need to run it. There's nothing in the method, and the method has not been called from anywhere yet. In fact, if you save changes to the file in Eclipse, Eclipse will mark the method with a warning stating the method Go Up the Hill from the type Choose an Adventure is never used locally. That just means you created a method that isn't being used. We'll add code to call that method soon. But first, let's program the method to do something. Exercise 2. Add some code to the method. In Go Up the Hill, print Going Up the Hill. We now have code in the method, but the method is never called, so there is still no need to run the code. Now that you've seen how to create this method, we'll create similar methods for the other 2 cases. Exercise 3. Create 2 more similar methods. Next, create methods to check the cottage and plant the beans. Have each method print a message stating what that method is intended to do. You should see the 3 new methods in the Eclipse Outline tab. In Eclipse, you'll see the Choose an Adventure class has a constructor, 3 new methods that we just created, and a main method. Notice that the Outline tab also lists all those methods. This is handy if your program has a lot of methods. Simply click the method name in the outline to be taken to that method. Click the Sort button in the outline pane to put the list in alphabetical order. So it doesn't matter what order you create the methods in the program, as long as you create them all inside the class definition. We now have 3 methods. Let's call them from the appropriate cases of the switch statement. Exercise 4. Call the methods. Now, in the constructor switch statement, replace the print statements with calls to the correct methods. Run it. What happened? If you run the program and entered A, B, or C, it should print the right message. Next, we'll need to run the code in the constructor again. However, Java doesn't allow you to call a constructor more than once. Luckily, code in other methods may be called more than once. So let's move the code from the constructor to its own method and call the new method from the constructor. Exercise 5. Create a method to start the story. First, create a new method named StartStory. Next, cut all the code from the constructor and paste it into StartStory. Then call StartStory from the constructor. Run it. What happened? It should have run exactly the same as it ran before. Now, look at what happens if the user enters something other than A, B, or C. The program ends without printing any messages. That's not really what you'd want the program to do. Fortunately, a switch statement can have a default case to run if none of the other cases in the switch statement matches the switch variable. You can add a default case to the end of a switch block like this. Code in the default case will run if no other cases matches the switch variable. So what should the program do if the user enters something other than A, B, or C? It should repeat the request. In other words, start the story again. Exercise 6. If invalid input, repeat the request. In start story, add the default case to the switch statement to call start story again. Run it. What happened? If you entered anything other than A, B, or C, it should have printed the start of the story again. Next, let's make the output just a little easier to read. Exercise 7. Make the output easier to read. Print a blank line at the beginning of start story. Run it. What happened? If you entered anything other than A, B, or C, it should have printed the story again, but there should now be a blank line between the first and second times the story printed. Key points and more. Methods. Methods are named blocks of code. Methods always have parentheses after their name. Use methods to help organize your code. Put code that completes a task into its own method. You may create as many methods as you want. This lesson used methods in the form of private, void, my method, empty parentheses, curly brackets. This lesson covered methods with empty parentheses. They have no parameters. Private methods can only be used by the class in which the method is defined. And methods that return no value are defined as void. In later videos, you'll create programs with methods that have variables as parameters that can be used by other classes and that can return values. If you click the method name in the outline pane of Eclipse, you'll be taken to that method in the code. Key points and more. Method naming conventions. Methods follow the same name conventions as variables. Method names can contain numbers, letters, $signs, and underscores. $signs and underscores aren't usually used. Blanks or periods aren't allowed in method names. Method names must not start with a number. Method names usually start with a lowercase letter. Method names are usually all lowercase. However, if the method name contains more than one word, the first word usually starts lowercase and all other words start uppercase. Key points and more. Switch statement default. Add the optional default case to a switch statement if you want certain code to be run when no other case matches the switch variable. Put the default case after the last case in the switch statement. The default case doesn't need a break statement. Here are the completed listings for all the exercises in this video. This is the end of the third lesson in the Choose an Adventure project. You may feel like you just made a lot of code changes with very little effect. The only visible difference in how it runs is that it will repeat the input request if the user enters something other than A, B, or C. However, your program code is now more organized and will make the following updates easier. In the next lesson, we'll add more story and more options to the adventure.